I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in and cleansed my heart from sin, I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in and cleansed my heart from sin, I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in and cleansed my heart from sin, I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Since Jesus Christ came in and cleansed my heart from sin, I'm in right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time.
Hey boys and girls, I'm down here in the Commons, I'm doing my exercises. Jonny has given me an absolute marathon to do this week, and it has to be done as a sprint. So just bear with me, I'll do a few more of these and then we'll meet back up at the studio for today's lesson. 200, 201, 202. Oh, thank goodness that's over. So boys and girls, I'm sure you're wondering what's going on, why I'm down doing exercises at the Commons. Well, here's the story. Jonny has asked me to do a marathon session today. He wants me to tell you a story that covers 5 chapters, 5 of them, and he wants me to do it in 15 minutes. So I thought, I'm going to have to sprint through this. I better get some training done. So I've had my training session, had my shower, and I'm back out here now and we're ready to do the story. So a couple of weeks ago, just to remind you where we are, we'll do a recap. A couple of weeks ago, Brian taught us the story of Jacob and his brother Esau. And then last week, Mary taught us all about Jacob and his wife Rachel. So today, I'm going to start the story of Jacob and one of his sons, Joseph. And Jonny will finish off that story next week. So we've got 5 chapters to cover, and here is my sort of test for you for next week. What I want you to do is read Genesis chapter 37 right through to Genesis chapter 42. That's where you'll get the story that we're going to talk about this morning. 5 chapters, there's no way I'm going to be able to read it all out to you. So I'm going to do an overview to help you understand what you'll be reading then over the next week. And then when Jonny comes back next week, you'll know all about it and he'll teach you the next part from chapter 42 onwards. So if we're ready to start, let's begin. So let's start with a family tree. Jacob, as we know, was the grandson of Abraham. God promised Abraham that he would make a great nation of him. In other words, he would have many descendants. That's just another way of saying he'd have a big family. With Jacob, we start to see that happening and can read about it a few chapters earlier in Genesis 35 verses 23 to 26, where we read that Jacob had 12 sons, Reuben the oldest, Benjamin the youngest, and in between Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, and of course Joseph. Now Joseph's life is a bit of a roller coaster. There are plenty of ups, but lots of downs as well. At the start of our story, Joseph is a young boy of 17. He was a good boy, not afraid to report to his father when others, including his brothers, did wrong. Jacob loved Joseph, loved him more than his other sons, and that wasn't a good thing. To show his love for his son, Jacob gave Joseph a coat of many colours. But his brothers didn't get one. Joseph's brothers hated him because Jacob loved Joseph the most. Joseph had 2 dreams. He and his brothers were harvesting grain. Joseph's sheaf of grain stood up and those belonging to his brothers bowed down to Joseph's. In his next dream, the sun, moon and 11 stars were bowing down to Joseph. So remember this. Later in the story we read, God is the interpreter of dreams. What was the interpretation of these 2 dreams? Not one that Joseph's family liked. In both dreams his brothers were bowing down to Joseph, indicating that Joseph had authority over them. And in the second dream his own father and mother were doing the same. His father was angry with him, and his brothers were jealous and hated Joseph even more. Jacob sends Joseph to check on his brothers, who were looking after the family flocks of sheep. And here we have the down on the roller coaster, the first one. His brothers see him coming and filled with rage they plot to kill him. Now oldest brother Reuben, he doesn't like what he hears and suggests that they throw him in a pit, hoping he can later on rescue Joseph from the pit. The brothers agree and into the pit Joseph goes, minus of course his coat of many colours. Judah then sees a chance to make some money, and he persuades his brothers, Reuben, absent at this point, to sell Joseph as a slave to some passing Ishmaelites. They got 20 shekels of silver for him. Reuben returns, sees his brother is gone, panics about what will happen to him as oldest brother when the father finds out. The brothers come up with a plan to lie to their father. Dipping Joseph's coat in animal blood, they return to their father and convince old Jacob that Joseph was killed by a wild animal. Jacob is so sad that no one in the family can make him happy. Joseph is sold into Egypt to Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. What had poor Joseph done to deserve this? Remember this lesson throughout our story. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, chapter 38, the story switches to Joseph's brother Judah. Remember him? The one who came up with the plan to sell Joseph off as a slave and meant that Joseph ended up in Egypt in Potiphar's house? Well, Judah gets married, has a family, and they are just as wicked as him and have to be dealt with by God. To summarise chapter 38, Judah's life is a mess. Back to chapter 39, and our story flips back to Egypt. Joseph is serving in the house of Potiphar, an Egyptian captain of the guard. Potiphar likes Joseph, and clearly Joseph talked about God, because we read that Potiphar saw that the Lord was with Joseph and blessed everything that Joseph did. So Potiphar made Joseph overseer of his house and in charge of all that he had. Joseph's roller coaster ride is on the up again. But that didn't last too long. Potiphar's wife was not as nice a person as Potiphar. She didn't respect Joseph for what he did or how he was blessed by God. All she wanted was Joseph for herself. But Joseph respected his master and loved God, and he rejected Potiphar's wife. So she got angry, made up a lie about Joseph, told her husband, and Potiphar got angry with Joseph and threw him into prison. Yet another down on the Joseph roller coaster ride. But even in prison, God was with Joseph, and the prison guard could see that God was with Joseph, and he gave Joseph authority over all the other prisoners. Even in prison, the roller coaster ride was on the up again for Joseph. While in prison, Joseph met two officers of the king of Egypt, or Pharaoh. They were the chief of butlers and the chief of bakers. They had both displeased Pharaoh, and he had thrown them into prison. While there, both men had dreams, and no one could tell them what they meant, so they asked Joseph. Remember what we've learnt already? God is the interpreter of dreams. And Joseph told the two men that, so they knew God was giving them their answer, not Joseph. The chief butler's dream, what was that? Well, grapes grew in 3 branches of a vine. The chief butler plucked them, squashed them into Pharaoh's cup, and he drank it. Joseph told him the 3 branches meant 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh would remove him from prison and give him his job back. The chief butler was delighted. The chief baker's dream. He asked, what does this mean? 3 baskets on his head, good food in the top basket, and the birds ate it. Joseph told him the 3 baskets were 3 days. Pharaoh would kill the chief baker within that time. And guess what? Pharaoh did. The chief butler was restored to his post, but despite what Joseph had done, he did not speak of Joseph outside of prison. So Joseph remained in prison for another 2 full years. Another down on the Joseph roller coaster. Then Pharaoh himself had 2 dreams. First one, 7 skinny cows ate up 7 fat cows, and the second one, 7 thin ears of corn devoured 7 good ears of corn. No one in the land could tell Pharaoh what this meant. And then the chief butler spoke up and told him about Joseph. Joseph is brought out of prison, cleaned up, and presented to Pharaoh. He showed no fear and again told everyone, including Pharaoh, that he could not interpret dreams, but, remember our lesson, God is an interpreter of dreams. Once again, Joseph was honouring God. He explained to Pharaoh that the dream meant there would be 7 years of fantastic harvest of food throughout the land of Egypt, but this would be followed by 7 bad years, or famine. So Pharaoh needed a plan to cope with the 7 bad years of famine when there would be no food at all. The Joseph roller coaster was about to climb up again because Pharaoh could see that God was with Joseph. and Pharaoh appointed him in command over all the land of Egypt, and to put in place a plan to deal with the famine which would come in 7 years' time. God once again blessed Joseph, and he successfully kept and stored sufficient food for the famine years. Joseph in this time also got married and had 2 children, Manasseh and Ephraim. Then the famine came, not just in Egypt, but in all the lands of the earth, the Bible says. And all the lands around Egypt came to buy food. God knew this was going to happen, and all that had happened to Joseph up to this point might have seemed unfair to us. But remember our lesson from earlier? You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Now, big breath, boys and girls. We're about to go into the home straight in this marathon, and we're into the last part of our story for today. Jacob heard there was food in Egypt, so he sent his sons to buy enough food to feed the family in Canaan. So 10 of the sons went, but Jacob kept Benjamin, the youngest, behind. When the brothers got to Egypt, they were met by Joseph. Joseph knew who they were, but he disguised his appearance and voice so that the brothers did not recognize him. Joseph remembered his dreams. Remember the corn and the stars which bowed down to his? Well, now it was coming true. Joseph accused his brothers of being spies, but they denied this and explained they were 12 brothers. 1 remained with their father, and the 12th son was dead. Joseph said he would only believe them if one of them returned and brought their youngest brother to see him. Then he threw them all into prison for 3 days. On the 3rd day he spoke to them again and said that all of them except one could return to Canaan with food for their family, but they must return with their youngest brother, and in the meantime that one that he kept back in Egypt would remain in prison. The brothers spoke to each other and said they were being punished for what they had done to Joseph. They didn't realize this was Joseph, or that he could understand the words they were saying. Joseph left them and cried. Then he returned and put Simeon in prison and said to the other brothers to go back home with corn for their family. But he told his servants to put his brother's money back in their sacks of corn. The brothers left for their long journey home, and on the way they discovered that their money was in their sacks. They were afraid that Joseph would realize that they had gone, hadn't paid for their food, and that they would now be in really big trouble. Not only that, they're going to have to tell Jacob what has happened. And what would happen? Well, you're going to have to wait until next week and tune in, and Johnny's going to tell us the rest of the story. Now, boys and girls, before we do our quiz, I just want you to learn 3 lessons today from that story. The first one is this: trusting God does not mean that we will have an easy life. Joseph certainly didn't, but not once do we read of Joseph doubting God. He remained faithful, and God blessed him, no matter where he was, whether that was in a prison or a palace. The next thing that I want you to learn is this: what we have and what we're able to do is given to us by God. Remember, Joseph said that he couldn't interpret the dreams, but he honoured God by saying it was God that gave the interpretation. And we should honour God too in everything that we do. And the last thing I want you to learn is this: even when we think life is unfair and all around us is going wrong, remember, what others mean for evil, God can use it for good. How do I know? Well, just look at the Joseph story. If he hadn't been sold as a slave, been separated from his family, if he hadn't been put in prison, he would never have been known by Pharaoh. Pharaoh would never have put him in command of all of the land of Egypt to store up the food. The food wouldn't have been available for the people of Egypt or those who came to buy corn. Jacob's family from Canaan couldn't have gone to Egypt to buy corn, and their family may not have survived. But God had a plan for that family, and he wasn't going to let anything stop it. So I hope you remember those 3 quick lessons. And just to test that you've been listening well today, we'll have our usual quiz. Right, boys and girls, question number 1. There were 12 sons of Jacob. Can you remember the name of the youngest one? I'll give you a clue. It begins with B. Here, over here, this side. Yes, that's right. The answer is Benjamin. Now let me see. I've got some nice sweets. Let's see if we can get some sweets here. Got them about. Oh, Russell's around. Yep, we've got some dairy milk here today. Brilliant. So that's for one for over here. There you go. Pass it around. Good. Good on you. Okay, question number 2. Joseph was sold in Egypt as a slave and he went to work in a person's house. Can you remember the name of that person? Again, the clue, it begins with P this time. Let's see. Someone over this side this time. Yep, that's right. The answer is Potiphar. Okay, so here we go. Nice fudge bar. Over we go to that person. Brilliant. Well done. And our last question for today. How many years of famine were there to be according to Pharaoh's dream? Remember? Right down the middle this time. Yep, that's 7. That's correct. There we go. Another dairy milk. So well done to everybody. Brilliant. Okay, boys and girls, we're just going to pray now. Okay, so I want you to close your eyes and bow your heads, and we're going to talk to God. Dear God, we thank you for this story that we've had today of the life of Joseph. We have heard it many times before, lots of us, but hopefully we've learned something new about Joseph this morning. Hopefully that we've learned that we can rely on God no matter what's happening around us, and that even when things seem unfair, God can use it for good and for his purposes. And help us, Lord, to honour you by giving you the glory for everything that we have and everything that we're able to do. Bless us this week that's to come. Look after us all. Look after all of those who are trying to teach us in homeschool. And Lord, just be with us, we pray. For it's in your name we ask it. Amen. All right, boys and girls. See you again. Bye.